Hello boys and girls, this is my second attempt at this video. I just wasted a lot of time trying to open up these various packages, and I have to watch a movie tonight in preparation for my appearance on Inside Movies Galore, the links to which will be in the description. I'll be on first at around 9 to talk about The Beaver, and then around 10 to talk about Maverick. And I've seen The Beaver, gotta watch Maverick. And it did come in the mail, we'll get to that in a second. I already opened everything up, so I'm just gonna go, tell you what all came. A lot came today. We'll just get right into it. First up is stuff from JDC Outlet, our favorite, Canadian eBay seller. And we got Heaven is for Real here, which I remembered seeing in the theater. It's one of those movies that you think is going to be so much worse than it actually is. And it's not to say it's perfect, but you could do a whole lot worse in the, kind of contemporary Christian drama genre. You could do so much worse, and Greg Kinnear gives a great performance in it, as he always does. He's a criminally underappreciated actor, I think. And then next up is a Clint Eastwood film I've never seen, Hereafter, which, I think Clint Eastwood's a lot of his films, especially his later period work, they can be kind of hit and miss, but when they hit big, I think he's still a master director, so I'm eager to check this out. And remember that these are from Canada, so they got the English and the French on there. Next up, another Clint Eastwood film, Gran Torino, which he sometimes acts in his films, sometimes not. I remembered seeing this in the theater, and I remember being kind of disappointed by it. Part of it was that I saw the trailer 50 million times in front of every movie, and I think that can kind of predispose you to not liking something when it's overexposed, but I do want to watch it again because it's been so long. I haven't watched it since theaters. And then next up, we got The Golden Compass with that awesome slipcover. Now this won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects, and this was a film I remembered caused quite a lot of controversy because of the fact that, and keep in mind we were in a more kind of, a more Christian conservative dominated time. It was still the Bush years after all. And, so at that time there was some controversy with the fact that, the creator, I guess, was an atheist, and that atheistic themes were in the books, which they had to tone down for the movie. I haven't seen it, I don't know. I'm just going into it as a fantasy film, and again, what a gorgeous cover there, and it was cheap. Next up, this is a Scream Factory that is going out of print this year, but I managed to find it with the slipcover, Deep in the Darkness, which I've heard really good things about, and it's a Chiller Films original. Yeah, I've heard really good things about this, and that's a beautiful slip. Next up, we've got a Guillermo del Toro presents Don't Be Afraid of the Dark with that. This is that exclusive Canadian slipcover, which looks a lot cooler than what I've seen in America. The one I've seen in America looks kind of like this, but her pose is a little different, and no slipcover. But again, as you know, I am a slipcover psychopath, and so if it's got a slipcover, chances are I'll at least, pay it more mind than if it didn't. Most people aren't like that, but most people aren't insane like I am. Next up, speaking of slipcovers, Chernobyl Diaries, which is a found footage film, and I like found footage films much more than most people do because I appreciate the craft that goes into them. I think that also they can, you can get some more realistic acting than you do in other kinds of films, but eager to check that out. I never seen it, but it was cheap again. And then we got, with the slipcover, we got I, Frankenstein, which I know that this is out on in 3D in the United States. Look at that. That's beautiful. I know that it's sort of like this. The top is different, and the colors on the cover are slightly different. And I've heard it's bad, but I'm a big fan of the Frankenstein story in any and the various adaptations. So I'm eager to at least see, what it entails, and I believe it's based on a comic as well. So trying to get, some of those based on comic films that are not necessarily superhero films, even though I love those. And then here, there's a couple over here. 12 Years a Slave with the slipcover. I want to watch this movie again because, when I watched it the first time, like, I was sort of. This was during a time when I was a little bit more nitpicky, but, like, at the time I was sort of like, well, it didn't really feel like 12 years. It felt like a really intense 6 months, except that, well, because the adults in the film, they don't really age all that visibly, except, like, the children all of a sudden are full grown, but, like, I could have used, like, maybe a few more wrinkles or a few more gray hairs or something to kind of tell me that time has passed. Or, like, it's just something, because even if it's nothing, it could be subtle, it could be little. I felt like, that just kind of clashed in my brain. Plus, I felt like, and I know in real life that the indentured servant, that he was the one who was able to get Solomon Northrup's letters out and get him freed. I know that really happened, but just the way it's done, it felt very grandstanding from Brad Pitt, which I do normally like Brad Pitt. I know he was a producer in here. It felt very self-congratulatory and indulgent, and to a certain extent, I was like, well, this film, it was more so of the way it was promoted during awards season. I was like, this wasn't the first slavery movie. It was an intense one. It was a very well acted, very well made one. But, to a certain extent, it just sort of felt like people were, like, acting as though it was the first slavery movie ever made, and it certainly wasn't. But do want to see it again. Do want to see it kind of outside of the kind of crazy social climate in which this came out, and some of the, like, I remember when Ellen did the monologue in the Oscars, she was like, we're all here to see 12 Years a Slave win Best Picture, and if it doesn't, you're all racist. And she said it as a joke, but it was just one of those, like, it was a very, it remains a contentious time, but just around different issues and different things. And so this is just a good lesson, whenever you're viewing something, it's always best to try to divorce yourself from the climate in which the movie comes out as much as you can, in terms of judging its merits. Now, in some cases, the context is very important, and I still think that the context is always important, but it's more so, as much as you can, try to judge a film based on what it is and what it's trying to do, more so than any kind of excessive love or excessive hate that it may get, because, that way you can judge it fairly. And that's what I want to do again. Not that I disliked it per se, because I didn't. I thought it was a well-made film, very much so. I just was more miffed at some of the, publicity surrounding it, I guess, or especially around award season. And that's why I don't even pay attention to the Oscars anymore. I think they're just overrated and irrelevant. But last up for JDC Outlet, Canadian stuff, Place Beyond the Pines, which I heard fantastic things about at the time, because the people that I heard about it from, they were big fans of Drive, which also has Ryan Gosling. And just let me get this one out of the way really fast, because I'm kind of ticked, to be honest with you, that this one, I ordered Alien on 4K, and guess what? It's just the standard edition, no 4K disc at all, so gonna have to return that. Yeah, I'm not happy about that. Anyway, speaking of Alien, we've got, so remember I showed you the Deadpool slip for Predator before? Well, the Predator came in the mail, and it does not have the slipcover, and this one wouldn't fit on the other one, so there you go. It's a good way to get use out of it. And I know technically it's not for that film, but what are you going to do? And I've heard, not so good things about the Predator, but, just need to add it to the rest of them. And then these are all custom covers that arrived. The custom cover of Wild Things, which we saw the standard case. Don't you think that looks so much better? I do. We got Sucker Punch there with a really, really cool custom cover, which this had some cool poster artwork and everything, but this just kind of makes it all come together a little bit easier. And then I managed to put in the disc there. Now, I don't know what the difference is between the rental versions and the the normal ones. I'll find out. If they're less good, then I'll figure out a way to sell it or something. We got Cowboys and Aliens with that much cooler artwork. And I believe it's just an alternate poster design, but it just looks a lot cooler than the standard release version does. And then World War Z here, which you saw in a previous video, the standard poster of this, which again, Brad Pitt, sort of, big action star, a little bit of grandstanding, but again, I have nothing against him. Like, seems like a good actor and a, decent person. But, like, this one just looks a million times cooler to me. It's got, like, that cool kind of bloody file look to it. And, of course, as a proud owner of an Apocalypse mask, which I made use of today, this speaks to me. I don't know why. And then last for the custom covers, the theatrical poster of Muppet Treasure Island, which, if you know the Blu-ray release of this, it comes with the Great Muppet Caper, but the cover that they chose to give it, to me, looks awful. So, and I adore this poster, which I believe was a Drew Struzan design, and so I'm glad to have it in there, and it just looks great. Before I continue, we're gonna have a little sip from the drink of Unboxing Champions, just to give my throat a little lubrication. Very important. Now, we're gonna move on to a few things that arrived for a few dollars more, which I have the other one for a fistful of dollars, which was supposed to. I thought it would come in the same package, but no. But now I've got all three of the Man with No Name films. Shark Night, the slipcover is coming separately, and I'll be able to put it on there. This is the film that I am talking about tonight on Inside Movies Galore, is Maverick. And again, that is at 10 Eastern Standard Time on his channel. I'll put the links to them in the description. The links to all of the eBay sellers I'm using, they're in the description as well. Shin Godzilla, which I thought was one of the best Godzilla films. I saw this on the big screen in the original Japanese language. They had a choice between that and the dubbed version, but I went with the original language, and I thought this was not only a great Godzilla film, but just a great film in general. It was an excellent way to bring classic Toho Godzilla back. And then these here were all films that I got at a local media store, which you may or may not have in your area, just depends. It's called Second and Charles, and it's owned by Books A Million. They're one of the few that's actually open during this time. They weren't always, but they reopened because I think that they got themselves labeled as an essential business, which I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm glad for it. So I got quite a lot of stuff back that I used to own, and some of these copies I had actually sold to them, and so I got them back. Hall Pass with the slipcover. It's I think, a pretty underrated comedy. I love Jenna Fisher, and I forget what her name is, but I thought she was beautiful, the Australian girl in it. These two were signed for me by Lloyd Kaufman because he has a cameo in Crank 2 and in Gamer. So yeah, I'm glad to have these back. I know that Transporter 3 has a 4K of it, but yeah, glad to have these back, and glad that they didn't get sold to someone else. This one is out of print, I believe. This 3-pack of Any Given Sunday, Varsity Blues, and We Are Marshall. And part of the reason why that is because of Paramount and Warner Brothers. I guess they had some kind of a release agreement, and it must have expired, and so therefore, once it did, then the releases that they did together became out of print. And then another 4-pack, Blood Diamond, Ninja Assassins, Executive Decision, and Domino, with the slipcover, and this was back when these were a Best Buy exclusive, so it's got that sticker on it. Mad Max, the Scream Factory version with the slipcover. One of the more common Scream Factories to find, but still glad to have it back with the slipcover. I don't know what the in print, out of print, I don't know what the status of it is, but you know, just it's always good to snag those with the slipcovers when you can find them. Now I did get the Canadian Sin City 1 and 2 pack there, but I remembered not only does this have the 3D disc, but this also has a second disc with the recut, you know, extended edition, so I'll probably sell the other one. But yeah, glad to have these back. And then Observe and Report, which I have heard good things about as far as it being like an underrated kind of dark comedy that kind of got overlooked because of Paul Blart Mall Cop. And you'll notice on some of these that there's some tearing because Second and Charles, I love them to death, but I had to get through all this just to get at the Blu-rays enough to be able to show them and make them halfway decent. But sometimes the tape that they use, it can sometimes tear the cardboard if you're not careful. And I am careful when I take them off, but even then, best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Last Dragon, amazing martial arts film with the slipcover. Used to own it, but the one that I had, it didn't have the slipcover, so I got it back, bigger and better. Excellent, not only martial arts film, but it's a great film that kind of subverts a lot of the stereotypes of African Americans and Asian Americans in Harlem, you know, at the time. And it's just a great homage to Bruce Lee films and to like 80s, you know, pop, and it's awesome. It's got just that right amount of cheese, but also the right amount of really cool martial arts to make it worthwhile. Speaking of cheese, Zombie Hunter with Danny Trejo, dressed up as a priest with an axe, beautiful girls, cars, zombies. What more could you ask for? Event Horizon here, which this might be out of print, I don't know, because when I looked for it online it was really pricey, but I got this for pretty cheap, and I've heard that this has quite the cult following now. It's kind of gotten reappraised, and so I'm eager to check it out. And that same seller, his name I can never remember, who does the custom covers, he has a really good one for Event Horizon, so I'll probably give that an order because it looks cooler than the standard cover. The Wolfman, the 2010 one, which I thought was, you know, it's funny because we had like Dracula Untold, and we had the Tom Cruise, the Mummy, aka the Mummy Impossible. That's what I call it. But I think this one was really, really solid. It was a remake, but a really darn good one. The makeup looked great. I can see why it won the Oscar. Love all these actors here. They all did fantastic. Yeah, check it out. I think it's underrated. And I just love gothic horror in general, and the homages to the classic Universal monsters. Yes Man with Jim Carrey with the slipcover, which I didn't used to have. Directed by Peyton Reed, who is a fellow UNC Chapel Hill graduate, and I've met him, and he's super nice. And I, of course, love Jim Carrey, and I love Zooey Deschanel. I do think he might have been, at least to me, I think that he might have been a little too old for her as far as, like, because it just felt a little weird, but then again, they were kind of an odd couple in the movie in general. Now, this movie, 999, this has quite the cast in it. The people that are listed here at the top, that's not even scratching the surface of who all is in this movie. Like, there's Teresa Palmer, Gal Gadot, all kinds of people that are in here. So yeah, very eager to finally watch it. Horrible Bosses, which I need to get Horrible Bosses too, but I remembered this one had just enough kind of dark humor to make me happy because I'm a big fan of dark humor, and you know, love Jason Bateman, love the cast there. Wormwood, Road of the Dead, which I have heard is really, really good. They describe it as whatever it says, Mad Max meets Dawn of the Dead, which, you know, that's an awesome combo. It's a great slipcover too. Extraterrestrial there, which I remembered I started to watch, but something came up. Got it back with the slipcover. which you remember we saw the gray before, but this one has the slipcover, and I sold the other one, so glad to have it with the slip. And I've heard that this is excellent, a good like survival film with Liam Neeson. This is a 4K of The Great Wall, which I saw in the theater. Zhang Yimou, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but the person who did Hero and House of Flying Daggers, which I saw both of those in the theater. And this was a pretty big deal as far as like a USA and China co-production. And I thought it was quite good for what it was. It was a kind of unique fantasy film that's a period piece. And last but not least, The Dictator with this Best Buy exclusive slipcover that I didn't even know existed. It has this fuzzy beard on it. Yeah, so what more do you need to say? So yeah, this was kind of a quicker version because I need to get watching Maverick. But yeah, just hopefully you liked all that stuff. There's a big haul. Make sure to check out Inside Movies Galore, Septum Sin versus the World. Links to both of those are in the description, as well as all the eBay sellers that I really like to use. So please like, share, subscribe, set phasers to stun, Warp Factor 5, wear your apocalypse mask if you're going to be out amongst the humans. Don't do anything stupid, and stay tuned for more videos coming soon.